Welcome to the Success Journey Show. Let's travel together through the lives of individuals on the road to success.
Hey, what's going on, travelers? It's Ricky Ventures and Marlon Madden, and we are back with you for another episode of the Success Journey Show, guys. The theme of this show is just make it happen. Make it happen. You see Marlon Madden sitting in his vehicle in the suit and tie. You know, it's been a long time since we've seen him so dapper. He went from that guy that was working from home to the guy that he's been, suited and booted, up on the hill. That he's important now. He's joining us on the road. He's not driving. He has an automatic. He's one of the auto cars. No, I'm joking. Autopilot cars.
Yeah.
Speaking about pilots, man, we have a phenomenal guest coming on today. Before we bring him on, Tim. His name is Tim. But before we bring him on, Marlon, what's good, man? How you doing today?
Man, I'm happy. I'm happy. Hey, I'm so excited for the episode that's gonna happen today, Rick, because Tim was a great guest. He not only broke down how he's a Top Gun pilot, but he didn't only talk about how to be a pilot. He talked about life and how you can apply what he did to regular life. And I think it's going to be a great show. I know it's going to be a great show. How you been, brother?
I'm good, dude. I mean, the last few weeks has been I felt like my motivation was gone. I felt like it was down. I realized I was going through that COVID, man. The COVID, it really takes you out, man. I had no motivation.
I told you that.
None. So I'm back on my feet. I feel good today. Probably the first day I feel good. So yeah, in a good space, man. Still good. Sometimes got a little COVID brain sometimes, but a little fogginess, but still I'm good to go. So, but yeah, travelers, man, we gonna always remember to go to the successjourneyshow.com to check out all of our episodes, previous episodes, I should say, and all the other content that we have. Man, we're really excited about bringing this show to you, and we want to thank you for leaving reviews and asking questions and sending us emails and stopping us on the side of the road and wanting to shake our hands. And no, I'm joking.
Take pictures and my autograph, Anything,
what did Zig
anything
Ziglar
for the
said?
Kids, man. Anything for the kids.
Yeah, anything for the kids. Was Zig Ziglar said, yeah, you take my autograph and $2 and you can get a coffee. Right.
Hey, Rick, what we can't forget though is our one of our sponsors. We'll name the two first. We'll hit Doctor. No. 21 The Net.
Yes, sir.
21 The Net. You want to check out 21 The Net into the radio show. And I'm gonna tell you, Dr. Gaddis, she's doing a great thing of just feeding the poor and feeding the people that need something to eat. And the one sponsor that we want you guys to go check out right now is the Hit Doctor. You could go to hitdrmd.com and you could see our swing trainer.
Yes,
the swing trainer, if you armbar and casting, early extension, and you want to stay inside that baseball, this is the thing for you. North and south, swing plane, you could use it for everything. It's getting a lot of great reviews. We just called some of our guys that we sold it to, and no one has given us a bad review yet. And we're not just saying that just because we're on here and it's our product. We would tell you, I hope you guys know we're very honest. People are giving us great reviews about it and telling us that they're utilizing it and it's very useful for exactly what they bought it for.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, guys, check us out, check them out, man. And we want you to enjoy the rest of this show. All right, guys, we are back here at our favorite segment of the show, a part where we sit down and talk to a guest as they share their experiences, their ups, their downs, their journey with us on their road to success. And today we have none other than Tim Hurley. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today, man, and being a guest on our show. Welcome to the Success Journey Show. What's going on, man? How are you today?
Thank you very much. Happy to be here. I'm doing great today. It's fantastic. So wrapping up a Monday and just happy to be here with the two of you.
Rick, doesn't he have a voice? Like he goes, "This is your captain speaking."
Yeah.
I told him that. Like you can tell, like he is straight, man. He's hey guys. So we're up here at 40,000 feet. We have no inclement weather. We'll be landing in 45 minutes. Sit back, enjoy
and
yourself.
And if you look out the right side, that's the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. But Tim, I got to chat just a little more to the introduction. I went up to OSD for a little 6-month stint, and I dropped into this section where these guys just put their arms around me and say, "Come here, dummy. Let me show you how to do this stuff right here," right? And I was asking Tim all kind of questions. I was like, "Tim, how you do this? Tim, how you do?" And I had to, it was trial by fire, and they really helped me out and made me successful. And at the same time, Tim was like, "Hey, I'm a Top Gun pilot." Well, he didn't just say it like that.
I don't lead with that. That's not really
right. We're all asking what you do. Hey, we're military because our team, we call it what we call our street again. Warrior Way. Yeah. So we were all military there. There's the one team that was strictly all military. So everybody's telling their story. And I came to find out he's a Top Gun pilot and Top Gun instructor. So I was like, man, I got to get him on the show, Rick. And but before we do that, Tim, why don't you just tell our audience about yourself? 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you want to do. Just tell the audience about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'll correct one thing. So I'm not a Top Gun instructor. I'm a Top Gun graduate. Been through Top Gun and that course. What Top Gun does is it creates instructor pilots. So you take a pilot from the fleet who's performing really well, and you send them through a 12-week course that just basically really ramps up the intensity of everything you're training for and everything you're trying to bring young pilots along, as well as veteran pilots that have maybe been out of the cockpit for a while. So training them on everything that they need to know to win in combat. That is the goal. And so Top Gun makes instructors. I stayed in Fallon and instructed after my Top Gun course and instructed at a group called Strike, and we teach large force tactics. So think, if we put up 24 airplanes and we're going to go against 40 enemy airplanes or something like that, a big group, mixed across the whole air wing. So not just fighters, but, electronic attack airplanes, airborne early warning, helicopters, the whole mashup. That's kind of how that Top Gun story comes around. But I mean, for me, I joined the Navy kind of on a whim right out of high school. So I was 17. I didn't have a whole lot of direction in my life about what I wanted to do. I visited a couple of colleges. It wasn't for me right away. A bunch of kids playing hacky sack in the middle of the quad. And I remember I went on a college visit with my dad, and this guy took us around. He's like, "Oh, this place is so great, man. We play inner tube water polo and all these things that I just couldn't see at that time for myself." And I was driving home with my dad, and he said, "What'd you think of that school?" I was like, "I don't know, man. I didn't think it was all that great." And he said, "You ever thought about joining the military?" And at the time I said, no, I had never thought of that. That wasn't really what I wanted to do. But then, as luck would have it, the next week there was a recruiter in the cafeteria at the high school.
Wow.
And I kind of went up to him he wasn't getting a lot of business at this school. And so I just went up to him and I said, "Hey, I'm interested." And he said, "Hey, can I come by your house after school?" And I was working that night at Pizza Hut, and I was like, "Yeah, man, I work at 5." He's like, "I'll be there at 3:30." No kidding. At 3:30, bam, bam, bam. I mean, you could have set your watch to it. He was probably waiting outside my door. Marlon knows about the recruiting game and
Yes,
what
sir.
that is, but he did not. He basically, as soon as he put the press on, he was there, and he was very honest about everything. It was not I wasn't shanghaied into the Navy or anything like that. He's like, hey, this is what it is. These are the jobs you qualify for. And so in lack of another plan, I just went for it and decided to sign up. I became a sonar technician at first, I was enlisted. And it was great. Like going in there and kind of, going through boot camp, and I did well in boot camp and got meritoriously promoted, and then kind of just kept up that drive. So I wouldn't say that I was a great student in high school, but competing in the Navy, or when you've got your scores stacked up against everybody else, I kind of thrived in that environment. Yeah. Like I wanted to win, not necessarily like I cared about what I was studying for, but I wanted to win on the grades. And, so I did that for just under 4 years. And then one of my commanding officers approached me and was like, hey, have you thought about becoming an officer? And so I said, yeah, let's, I had applied before, and then I got picked up on my third application. Went off to college, went to Georgia State. Nothing super outstanding there. Majored in business, kind of went through where I could go through fast, because at the time I was just really eager to get back to the fleet, get back to the Navy, and do that stuff. And then competition kind of comes up again. So it was that, hey, what's the hardest thing to do, or what would be difficult to do? And I thought, flying would be something I'd like. So I tried it. I tried it in the summertime in like a little Cessna in the middle of Georgia. Summers, hot, nasty, no air conditioning. I felt sick the whole time. Never threw up, but I just like, oh man, I don't know if this is for me. But then I went to flight school, and it's that competition thing again. All your scores are posted. Everybody sees, how well you scored, what you did. And I was able to fall into a group of people that really wanted to study hard, and we did. And we just, our goal was to miss 0 questions through flight school. So, stacks and stacks of index cards, all sorts of study materials, just to make sure that we drilled everything over and over and over. And then kind of, once again, you continue down that path of competition where it's just about what's the next hardest thing. Okay, the next hardest thing is jets, and then to get jet grades, and then go do jet stuff was awesome. Go to my first tour, and from there, you're kind of competing against the other junior officers, and then Top Gun is the hardest thing they got. So I said, I want to do that. And I was lucky enough to get picked up for it.
Wow, man!
Yeah, what a career!
So one of the most important things we got to get clear here is what's your name? Like what's the name? Like I know I'm watching the movies. The Maverick. You have Fly Right. I don't know. I forget all the names.
Yeah.
Like what was your name, man?
My call sign is Fluff, which has been shortened for political sensitivities, but it is Fluff. And it's got all sorts of connotations to it. The best one you could say is that I put a lot of words in my writing, but there's some other graphical ones out there that we'll just let hang out.
So
when I was a brand new, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, imagine when I got into the office, right? Because in the pilot world, they always it's a Tim Hurley, call sign Fluff. So then everybody started calling them by their call sign, and I was like, "This,
that's right."
I don't know if I could call this man Fluff."
Hey, in the Navy, unlike the Air Force, they got Spine Ripper and Laser and Crusher and these really cool call signs that they pick. Yeah, they pick for themselves. In the Navy, we generally make it just about as self-degrading or as possible, and you don't get to pick it. In fact, the more you hate it, that's the one they're going to pick.
All right.
That's right. That's right.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
and then I should have done something dumb, peed my pants or something in the jet to get a different call sign, but it didn't work out. My call sign changed when I was a JO, junior officer, to MNURSE, which was short for man nurse, because my son was born at home, not planned. It just happened, and so I was man nurse, but I'd already been Fluff for so long that by the time like I got a new coffee cup and everything, and then nobody would call me Nurse, they would just call me Fluff. And so one day they had a meeting. I was happy with Nurse. I thought that was cool. I'd be like, oh, short for mercenary or something. But a guy came in and said, anybody, let's have a vote. We're going to go back to Fluff. And they all voted. We're back to Fluff. He took my new coffee cup. He smashed it on the ground. I've been Fluff ever since.
Imagine flying, right? And it'd be like, yo, who shot you down? Yo, who killed one of our best pilots? And they'd be like, this guy in the US they call Fluff.
It strikes fear in the heart of the enemy right there.
Yeah. Oh man. No, I love it. So go ahead, Marley. Go say something where you.
Yeah. So I was at all when I first got there, and I was like, oh wow. So our office, we have I say our office like I'm still there. The office has a Space Force guy, 2 Top Gun pilots.
That's right.
Right? And then we have another guy that he did like everything known to name a career, he did it.
He's a SWAT team commader. He's been everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's been everywhere. On the Air Force, SWAT team commander, this guy did everything. So I was surrounded by good guys. Now, explain to people, just to be a pilot, especially a jet pilot, how difficult that is, because they hear you saying all the competitive, but how difficult it is just become, and everybody wants to do that, of course, but how difficult is it to become that jet pilot?
Yeah.
So I think it comes down to, it's a little bit of a personality type. You have to be the type of person who is, one, you're going to be fighting an uphill battle. So it's not like the entire time you're killing it, and you see a lot of we've got kids in sports and everything. You'll see kids that like come out thinking on day one that they're going to be this amazing athlete, that they're going to have all these skills and techniques, and you just don't have it, and it's like driving a car or just about anything else. You start with the basics and you kind of start working through, and how seriously you take that throughout the entire process. It just keeps building on itself, but there's always more to learn. And, it's like the old axiom, like the second you think you've learned everything there is, you're done, and so as you go through flight school, those challenges just keep stacking up on each other. And I think if you tried to look at it as a whole, you'd be like, oh man, this is impossible. There's so many flights, there's so many things that I've got to work on. And that's really not the way to tackle it. You got to go in, you study for the next flight. You're putting your effort into the next event. And when that one's over, great, you're on to the next one at that point. And you're just continually building this base of knowledge. And, flight school itself, it's long, it's challenging especially in the jet pipeline, which at the time for me, it was about 2 years long. It should only be about 10 months long when you get to the advanced jet phase. But we had aircraft issues and things that had broken down. So ended up kind of stacking up in this pipeline. So that staying on task and staying motivated, even though you may go 3 weeks without flying in that training pipeline, you're always ready for that next flight. And I think that ability to just take a look at a massive information in front of you, start digesting it, eat the elephant one bite at a time, will get you there. And I don't think that it's the kind of thing that is unattainable for the average person. I'm a very average person. And like I said, I didn't do great in high school. I got, A's and B's, I wasn't a 4.0 kid. I was like a 3.3 kid. But that didn't matter to me, but flying mattered to me. And that's where I could put that effort into. And that's where, I really enjoyed it. And, I had good people around me that were doing the same thing. And kind of when you're working in that group, it just builds on itself.
Man, you said a lot of great things in there, Tim. And the one thing I want to highlight is just having that big picture, right? So people see, oh man, he went to Top Gun school, and that is a feat within itself. That as if you get into the service and that's your aim and that's all you're looking at, and you're getting overwhelmed by, oh, that's my goal, and you're not focusing on what's in front of you. You see that so many times when people on this quote unquote road to success, whether it be in the military, whether it be in the corporate world, whether it be an entrepreneur, it's like, oh man, I'm trying to sell $100 million worth of products. Like, just sell one, right? Then sell 10, right? Let's take the bite size approach. Like you said, you're going to eat the way to eat the elephant is one bite at a time, right? And with that, it's so hard sometimes for people to do. But you said another very great thing, and in your explanation of who are you surrounded with, right? You were surrounded with people that one brought out that competitive spirit in you, right? You know, you said you weren't the best scholar when in high school, right? But not because of any lack or just more so interest and motivation, right? And when you found that thing that you were motivated by, and I'm going to venture off to say it was your drive and competitiveness that kind of start to steer you along your way, right? You said in the beginning, it was like, oh man, it was a competitor. You start seeing your scores on the board, and you're like, oh man, I want to push to be higher, right?
That's right.
What would you say to people that are in their everyday life that, you know, they have those lofty goals and they currently don't have that surrounding or that thing pushing them right to that next level? How would you say they should like kind of either fabricate it or get around some people that can push them?
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to put it. And I mean, sometimes we think fabricate it like you're making it up, but you've got to find the people that are going to push you, and you've got to find the people that are doing the same things that you want to do. Because unfortunately, there's people, that are come around in your life that have different goals, or they're negative, or they're going to try to steer you away from what you're looking for. And it's not like you're, hey, I'm better than you, I've got to go do this thing or whatever it is. But you're basically, when you find like-minded people, those are the relationships that you foster, because they're the ones that help you out. And it's not even, it's not necessarily like a quid pro quo, you do this for me, I'll do this for you. That's not it at all. It is like, hey man, do you guys want to go out tomorrow night? And you're like, dude, I need to study. So do I. Let's get together at noon and we'll study for this thing. And then, once we got it all done, we'll go out. And then maybe you never even go out because you spend the whole day studying or whatever it is for your goal.
Yeah.
And I think that, when we look at really long-term goals, like if, the first day of flight school, you would be foolish to walk into that room with all that competition and say, I'm going to go to Top Gun. I'm going to be a jet pilot. I'm going to do these things. That can be your goal. That's something you may want to achieve, but you need to work on, okay, what's the next step and how can I do this as best as I can? Because a big goal like that, all of your incremental progress isn't going to feel like much. It's not going to feel like you're actually checking boxes and getting there. It's not 3 steps and you win. We're talking 1,000 steps and you win. And so every little victory counts. Even if you just do something for 10 minutes that day that's going to get you closer, that's a secret sauce. It's incremental building to anything you want to do that's big.
Yeah. I love it.
Man, I'm telling you. And now I asked him this, right? Because the thing about a Navy pilot is that they have to land on an aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
Right. So,
wow. Yeah.
Ricky, picture it. When you go to park in a parking spot, you don't go full speed and the parking spot is moving and you just drive. Imagine, right? So picture your parking spot moving while you have to get your car onto it, right? So now let's talk about that scenario. I asked him one time, and he was talking about it. Talk about your when you start doing that, and when you have to qualify, and the feeling that you have.
Sure. It's overwhelming, right? And it's one of those things like, one, nobody ever says it's easy. So it's never like you meet somebody in the ready room and they're like, that's super easy. Everybody is afraid of it. And it's the kind of thing where you the first time you do it, you practice it at the field where they've got a little tiny carrier box painted on the runway, but it's not moving. And it's not pitching up and down. And it's a runway, and you've seen runways your whole time flying. So that you're like, okay, this isn't that bad. But the first time you go to the aircraft carrier, you go by yourself. There's nobody in the plane with you. There's nobody that's going to take over the controls. It's just you, and you got to get it done, right? And so you've seen an aircraft carrier before, and you're like, oh, this thing is huge. Until you fly over it, at 10,000 feet, and you look down, and you're like, that is the smallest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
This is crazy, and your heart goes through the roof. You're nervous. You hope you're ready. The corrections you need to make, but you really don't feel it until you're right behind the boat. So we call it the groove, and the groove is the last 15 seconds of flight, right before you touch down. And I mean, the heart rate goes through the roof there, and so that's during the day, and then they turn the lights out, and you go at night. And if you thought your heart rate was high before, it's even higher. There's research from Vietnam where they had guys that were in combat getting shot at, and their heart rate wasn't as high as it was when they came back and landed on the carrier.
Wow.
So it is the one thing that, even if I was going back to the carrier tomorrow, I would sit down and I would mentally rehearse it over and over and over. And it's, if you want to talk about some of the keys when you start trying to be successful, it's not only visualizing your success, but for me, I have to anticipate those feelings so that when I'm rolling in behind the carrier, I will feel my nerves start to ratchet up and my heart rate start to ratchet up. And I can tell myself like, hey, this is what we expected. This is perfectly normal. I expect to feel this way. And then you can kind of say like, let's put that aside. And now we're going to perform and we're going to land on the boat. So it's definitely a rush. It's the kind of thing that even now that I'm older and I've been doing it for a whole career, when I land on the carrier, I may not feel nervous, but I can tell because when I'm taxiing out of the landing area, my feet will shake on the rudder pedals. Like my feet will be, adrenaline will be flowing out of my body. It is a physical reaction.
Wow. Man, you don't think about those things, right? It's until you started to explain it to me. You don't think about it. You watch the movies, you see them, take off, come right back, get catch by the little cable. Right.
That's right. It's all it is, basically. Man.
Yeah. But you're not thinking, like, wait a minute, that boat's moving. That boat, even if it's still like the wave is still pushing it. At some point, you have to adjust for all of that stuff. And then, and then when you're landing, no matter how big the boat is, like I've been on, we're from New York, so we'll often go over to where is that? The Intrepid. In New York City, and you see how massive the boats are, but then there's other things on the boat at times as well, right?
It's a small little strip you're landing on. It's not, you don't get the whole thing, you just get a small piece of it.
Yeah, it's crazy in terms of the skill. So when you're talking about practice, I mean, a movie that's coming to mind is Iron Eagle, and they have the simulation when he goes in there and he's like working through all the different things and maneuvers and part of your training. And if it's too much information for the world, but it's part of your training is, do you guys go through those type of situations and simulations and, all that good stuff?
Absolutely. We do a ton of simulator work, especially for the boat. and we've got really high fidelity simulators now with, they're fully kind of wraparound visuals. And I mean, they're really amazing things, and they're just getting better and better, especially with like things like VR, where we can start to train to some of that stuff. And it's obviously a lot less money than taking off and burning a bunch of gas and flying around. So before you go to the carrier, you will have done it in a simulator a number of times. The simulator fidelity really close to the carrier is not great, but the way to experience it is to just jump in and do it, and then every time you do it, you'll kind of ratchet down that anxiety level, but it's still not fun.
So before, and I know all our guests are listening on right now, or all our listeners or travelers, that's what we call them, are listening, and they're like, so you got to ask him about if Top Gun and the Top Gun movie, he's the best person to give us information. But before we do that, on the ground, when you're a ground pounder, when you're an infantry guy, there's one thing you're afraid of. It's called friendly fire.
Yeah.
When you're flying in the air, are there any times that you can near misses with jets or?
Oh yeah.
All the time.
How
Yeah, all the time. I mean, we try to maintain what we call a bubble, so a training distance around each aircraft, between 500 and 1,000 feet, which isn't much. However, I mean, when you've got those big exercises going with lots of airplanes, we try to mitigate things by having altitude blocks. So, okay, hey, the bad guys will be in this block and the good guys are in this block. But when the fight gets, a little bit out of hand, people will sometimes leave their blocks or they're not sure where they are. So, I mean, there's, every naval aviator will tell you about a story or two where they have come very close to another airplane. I mean, I had one in particular where, we had gone in, I was instructing a student on a check ride. And so he's going through his flight lead. So he's a young kid, he's learning to be a flight lead, and I'm going to qualify him to get this hop. And the mission we were doing is called a self-escort strike. So we're going to fight our way in, we're going to drop bombs, and we're going to fight our way out against an air-to-air threat and surface-to-air threats. So we go in, everything's going great. We drop our bombs, we turn, we come off target. And there was a problem in that it wasn't communicated effectively how many other contacts there were out there. So I saw one on my radar, he sees one on his radar, and we call it strength one. So, hey, single group strength one. At that point, we're flowing to the merge, which is when we'll cross the same flight path. And, he shoots the guy. Great. I can see him. I'm looking at my airplane towards him as we flow to the merge. And then all of a sudden I got a big vibration, like the airplane shook and jerked. And another aircraft flew probably 20 feet over the top of my plane, right overhead, and I got back, I saw the other pilot, and I said, hey man, did you see me there? And he goes, I didn't see it till I passed you. And so there were two airplanes, safety stuff should have come up and they should have said, hey, there's actually strength two there. It got missed. And then we barely missed each other. And then I've got dozens of stories like that where, it's a dangerous business. And, we try to mitigate it as best we can while still training to a certain level. But sometimes, hopefully it's a near miss and not a collision.
Yeah.
Rick, if that happened to you, have you almost had a car accident and had to pull the car over to the side of the road because
you're like, man.
because you're shaking? So imagine in the sky what happened. Like they're like, hey, so we're going on another flight. I'm like, not today.
Yeah. We got to fly home, debrief the flight, and at that point, between the two of us, it was just like, sorry, bro. We said sorry, and we went about our way. But it's those kind of things happen, when you're moving fast and you can only see what your field of vision can see, and then it's not the guy you see that'll hit you; it's the guy you don't see.
Yeah, man.
Hey, you're listening to the Success Journey Show. Just a reminder, follow us on our social media at The Success Journey Show on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Also, you can check us out on our website at thesuccessjourneyshow.com. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Tell us, before you go into the whole movie, what's the highest speed that you've traveled at?
So the fastest I've been is in an F-16 at Mach 1.7.
Okay.
So I don't know the straight conversion, but it's probably over 1,000 miles an hour, something like that.
And your body has to be ready for those.
I was getting ready to say, how does that feel? How does that feel for people to understand that?
Sure. Well, like when you're just flying that fast, it really doesn't feel bad at all. You're sitting in the cockpit, everything is normal. What Marlon's kind of alluding to is when you turn. So now the faster you're going, when you make that big turn, you increase the G or the gravity force on your body. So, the plane is turning and the G force is coming out the bottom of it. And so it kind of pulls you down. So in an F-16, that's a 9G airplane. It feels pretty awful. It's the kind of thing you can strain against it. You can hold against it for a little bit, but it's not fun to sustain it for a very long time. So we'll do all sorts of maneuvers where we squeeze our legs and we kind of force that blood back up into your head because the blood is pooling down in your extremities. And if it does it for long enough, first you'll lose your vision because the blood will come out of your eyes, and then you will eventually lose consciousness because you won't have enough blood flow to your brain.
Wow. So right on par with what they were talking about in the movie there when they had to make that maneuver over that mountain. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, when you say squeeze your legs, it automatically gave me a flashback to back in the day when I used to sing a lot and wanted to hit the high notes. They said I got to squeeze my butt cheeks, just to get the get the notes out.
There you go.
But no, man, it's crazy because a lot of people I've never met a military pilot, but I've always been fascinated from. I was telling my brother last week, because we're always reminiscing on movies that we grew up on, and Iron Eagle was like one that was on repeat in our house, right? Always. But it was never one of those things where I even met a pilot, knew anything about it. You're probably the first military pilot that I'm actually getting the opportunity to speak to. So it's really fascinating just to hear your experience and kind of the path that you went through to get where you are. And one of the questions I have for you is, as you are, so since all my references are based off of movies, right?
Sure.
So you have like you had the Doug Masters. You have these younger generation coming in, right, to the military, and just the sophistication and the technology is getting better and things of that nature. But when it comes to like that work ethic and really just really sitting down and understanding the growth and what is needed, what are you having to kind of share with them nowadays, now that you have gone through your career and you're giving back and you're teaching them now? What do you see in a difference in learning, and then also kind of some of the positive things as well that they're bringing in this generation?
I would say that I've been really impressed with the generation as far as their ability to adapt to the new technology. I mean, the airplanes that I started flying in were much less high tech and they were still pretty high tech for what they were, but compared to what we've got now and the amount of systems and just integration knowledge where they need to be able to fly an airplane and operate a massive computer system, right? And I think that their ability to do that, the men and women that are here that are working hard, like they're really good at adapting this technology. I would say too that as the threat has grown, we see more advanced threats coming out of other countries. Our tactics have had to evolve to be able to combat that, and it's not easy flying. We don't live in a world where we enjoy this massive advantage in the sky, and that's because the tactics have gotten harder. And I think their ability to understand very difficult tactics early on is really mind blowing, and I'm super impressed. I think kind of that idea of I should be really good at this right now thing, that we see that with younger pilots where they may get a little discouraged because I'll tell you, in our world, we don't really praise what you did right. So we expect you to do the right thing all the time. So, and we don't have enough time to sit around and be like, hey, that shot you took was really great. Like, we don't have that time. All we have time to do is critique. So a lot of the debriefs are very, critical. And it is the kind of thing where we're here to teach you what you did wrong, how you do it right, and to make sure that, we can fix something, or just, iteratively get it better for the next event so that we don't make the same mistakes. And we're all going to make mistakes because it's complicated, dynamic. And even them, they can debrief me as well. So it's not like, okay, I'm the instructor, I do no wrong, I'm just going to tell what everybody else did wrong. In the fighter community, we will go down the line, and it's called a safety is what we call it. But basically, it is your opportunity at the beginning of the debrief to point out whatever you did wrong. So everybody's got a list of all the things that they know they screwed up on, and they'll just bring it up. If it's been brought up, we don't bring it up again. It's not like, hey, I made this turn that was wrong, or I did this thing that was wrong. Okay, they've acknowledged it. We know that when we get to the part of the debrief where we're going to teach how to do it better, they're going to bring it up and tell us what it should have been. And then, so we all have lists of things that everybody did wrong. If they say it, we just cross it off. And then, nobody in the flight is immune from criticism. Yeah. So you could be the commanding officer of the squadron, and if you screwed something up and I didn't catch it, I would expect even the youngest pilot there to say, "Sir, this wasn't correct." And that's kind of how we get better. It's a very critical assessment of what we did. And I think that initially, while pilots get used to that mentality and get used to that kind of, hey, we're going to call this baby ugly if it was, that takes a little while to get on board. And it's to realize that, like, I'm not saying I don't like you. Ricky, you didn't take that shot, and Marlon died. I'm going to tell you how to take the shot right. We're going to make sure we fix it so it doesn't happen again. Yeah. I have no beef against you. I'm not going to bring up anything, but I'm going to bring out the importance. And some people, when they hear criticism, they immediately go to, this person doesn't like me. This person just wants to make us better. And so I think that's tough to pull in.
Yeah, and the severity of, what you're engaged in, right? Like, you have to take it that serious, right? Like, you have to. We're talking about life or death. We're talking about your safety first, of course, and then carrying out a mission that you're going to have to do, right? And it's all about, really, at the end of the day, it's all about lives, right? Whether it's ours or us carrying out a mission, right? So it's how do we get back home and complete everything well? And we want to make sure that, it's not just about, high fives and, attaboys. It's about, hey, what can help me get to where I need to be best? And a lot of people can't take that constructive criticism, man. And it starts at young. You see a lot of these young kids now. I do a lot of, my kids are getting trained and doing basketball and all the different sports. And you see all these players, and a lot of them are all frantic when the coach says something wrong to them, and they're like, "Oh, what?" But yeah, I expect you to dribble, the right way. Like, but when you do it wrong, I'm like, "Hey, man, you're traveling, right? The referee doesn't blow the whistle when you make a shot. The referee's not there to blow the whistle when you're making shots, right? Yeah. He's there when something goes wrong. Like, hey, man, I was wrong. Like, let's correct that, and let's penalize. Like, let's move the game going, right? So, I mean, I'm so glad that you said that. And I it's good to hear, man, just the new generation, just the adaptability to the technology and just really jumping in on it. And I think just that problem of just being an expert today immediately is something that high performing, and that's what I'm noticing about high performing young people is that is not that they're incapable, not that they just want to get there too fast. It's like, it's great. I know I want to get you there, and I love that you have that desire and that urge. But just remember, things still take time, right?
Right.
And you got to go through a process with it. So it's a good problem to have, but you just hope that they just embrace it. So Marlon, go ahead, man. I didn't want to hog it up.
No, man, I'm enjoying the conversation. I get a chance. I had 6 months to keep on asking Tim the same questions every time, every little chance I got. I was at my desk and I'm like, oh, I got a couple of minutes. I see Tim. Tim, what you doing, man? Oh, da, da, da. So when you fly your plane, right? So now we can get into to this portion of the show where people are like, first of all, talk about how your squadron was part of the actual second, which was one of the best sequels ever.
That's right.
One of the best sequels, because usually you have a part 2 to something, especially after so many years, it doesn't come out very well. But talk about how you your unit or your squadron was a part of that movie.
Sure. I mean, you would not believe the effort the Navy went through to make sure that this movie was, I mean, not only realistic, but, shot in real jets doing real jet things. I mean, everything you see in the movie is shot live, and they built out these airplanes with massive camera systems, and they basically took over a whole part of the ramp out there in Lemoore and in Fallon to do this. Lemoore in California is where our big master jet base is, and then Fallon is in Nevada, where Top Gun actually is, even though in the movie it looks like it's in San Diego. So what was interesting is that they basically came around and they had to start, setting up flights for all the different actors. And there is, I don't know if it's a law or whatever it happens to be, but in stunt doubling, when you're gonna appear in a movie as another actor, they want you to be the same race, the same gender as the actor that you're stunt doubling for. And so, like,
I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, exactly, it does. And I mean, in this case, you're wearing an oxygen mask and a helmet and gloves, so nobody hide it pretty well, but they still stuck to it. So, okay. My squadron happened to have 2 black pilots, which was not very common on the flight line, but they're in the movie, and so they were pulled out really quick to be like, hey, you're fleet pilots that know how to fly these airplanes, and we'd love to have you come shoot a couple of scenes. Same with there weren't as many female pilots, and this is part of the the real pull of this movie is that we want to show the world that, like, we want to be as diverse as everywhere else. We want to make sure that we've got the people flowing into the Navy that can do these jobs. Because, like you said, when you grew up, you didn't know any fighter pilots or whatever. And I mean, I didn't either. But if you watched Top Gun 1, it wasn't very diverse. If you looked at a lot of other movies, it's basically the same. So, we're trying to show that, like, hey, these are opportunities that are out there, and if you want to go do it, it's available for you. And it's fun, and it's cool. So it is a great way to do it. So pilots from all over the flight line, to include my squadron, were able to go in and fly some of these roles. They didn't necessarily stick to the same pilot for the same guy at the same time. It was really just who was available and could come over and fly some of these pieces. But I mean, they were on the ramp there for probably 6 months, flying in and out. It's weird to see Tom Cruise walk into the ready room and walk out and do a bunch of stuff. Everybody was kind of all in awe of it. But I mean, in the end, the product is great. And what they came out with was very entertaining. And so I think that they really hit it on the head. I'm glad they didn't release it during COVID on, Netflix or whatever, and they put it out on in the movies where it needed to be seen. Because I think we got a big reaction from it.
Absolutely. It was huge. They, oh my goodness, I just lost a question. He said that. Man, okay, it was a good one too. Oh
good
my
you can't
goodness,
remember it.
it was so good. And you said Tom Cruise, and you said everyone was
Yeah,
on. I'm
And you
like,
got
he's so
flustered.
oh
dreamy.
You got
yeah.
flustered.
Oh man, it'll come back to me. But yeah. So the I'm really happy to hear that, of course the Navy would have to participate at some level in order to produce something like that. And in terms of just, oh man, I don't know why, man, listeners, man, I'm lost right now. I don't know where I'm at. I'm blaming on COVID. I had COVID a couple of weeks ago, so
Oh,
I've been having these little foggy moments sometimes. Man, Marlon, help me out. I'm lost track, man.
No. I got you, man. I'm gonna tell you. So
Man.
you said that it was closest to the how what me watching a movie and I'm seeing a guy shoot and never reload. That kind of makes me upset, right? Because I'm like,
sure.
come on, bro, you can't just keep shooting this gun like this and never put a round in it. At least have the actor put a round in it, another magazine, so we can see. It's not that hard to do. What was there anything in the movie that you're like, ooh, okay, we're not going to talk about that one.
Well, we'll put it. I mean, it's a movie, right? And it's for
Yeah.
entertainment. So there are a lot of concepts when we fly that are very tough to show in a movie. I mean, especially now, oftentimes we're much further apart when we're fighting, especially when fighting in a big group to go do just about whatever. So we're like, rarely would we have to be that close, but you have to be that close to shoot it in a movie. So a lot of things, they're right next to each other or they're right behind each other. I mean, missiles are pretty good. They can shoot pretty far. So, they would have more distance. There's a lot of times you'd see in movies where the guy is right in front of you, like he's already dead. Like if you're just about in front of me, you're already dead. So it's not, I don't have to be 100 yards behind you, completely level flying with you to kill you. It's so those pieces are kind of interesting. I mean, the movie, it's really well done. With the, like when they're flying through the canyons, right? Like they're flying through the canyons. A lot of times, if I'm flying, especially low level through a canyon, that requires a lot of looking around. It requires a lot of moving that airplane very fast. And I can't necessarily fly right next to another airplane. I can fly right next to another airplane very close, but I can't fly right next to an airplane very close and go through a canyon. So like,
yeah.
Like I trust you, buddy, but I'm not going to let you fly me into a wall. So I'm going to kind of want to know where things are. And I mean, so it's just, you could fly offset, you could fly behind them. They're just little pieces like that they had to kind of modify, for cinematography. Not, it doesn't take anything away from the story. It's not, not loading the gun, things like that. But there's a lot of things that are really accurate as far as, they show him pulling off target and he grabs the stick and there's something called the paddle switch on the bottom, so the plane, Super Hornet is 7.5 G limited, right? But you can pull that stick and you can override it, so they're saying like, basically you're going to over G that airplane, which it would, and you could use it if you were in extremis, you needed max G on the airplane. So that's accurate. They talk about like the targeting pod not locking on to what they're going to dive bomb, which targeting pods screw up all the time, especially if they've been ripped through a canyon, right and left, the little gyros in there might get messed up. So that stuff's pretty accurate. There's some mission planning factors that go, other levels where you'd be like, oh, said we can't do this. I mean, I guess we could, but it worked for the movie. It's close enough.
That's what it was. I had two questions. It was a good one. It was a good questions. Here we go. Two of them. So first one is, I asked this one first. The co-pilot, right? The roles of the co-pilot. Like a lot of people see, you can have a single pilot and you have the co-pilot. Just explain the dynamics of that for people that aren't really aware.
Sure.
Because
it's not really a co-pilot in Super Hornet. So in the front seat, there is a throttle and a stick and rudder pedals and all that stuff. And in the back seat, It's a weapons systems officer suite, so it's kind of set up for him to do things. So I've been a single seat Hornet guy my whole time. However, I have flown some 2-seat with instructional stuff here and there, and so got a pilot in the front and a weapons system officer. We call them WIZOs in the back, and they can do a lot of things to kind of lighten the load for a pilot, as far as helping him work targeting pods, lasing bombs into sites, stuff like that. And we can use them in some other missions. There's one called Forward Air Controller Airborne, or FAC-A. And so they can basically work like a JTAC on the ground, who'd be with the Marines calling in airstrikes, but they can do it from above. So they can stack up other airplanes, give them targets to bomb, and kind of run a stack from up above. So if we don't have anybody on the ground, they could be directing strikes in a hostile area.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And my last question for the night is, when I watch these different shows and these different movies, I really get into them, right? To the point where I remember I was into the show 24, right? With Hefner. That's his name, right? I forget his last name. But yeah, he the whole show 24, and my wife was convinced I was going to join the FBI or some type of service. Now, and the reason why is because I'm thinking like that's all that action is always happening all the time, 24 hours. You're getting all this stuff in. Now, typically, and I know Marlon has shared this with me a few times as well, with people wanting to join the service because they feel they get ready to just get right there, get their backpack, and they're off to off the war, and you're gonna be fighting every single day, and what is the experience of a pilot, like an everyday case? Like, what are you guys doing? Like, what is life like on that side?
So, it's very punctuated, right? I mean, I would say that like the times I've employed in combat are, we're talking like 4 out of, thousands of flights. And so these are very small punctuations, but a normal day for a pilot in the fleet, let's say you're not on deployment, you're just back at home, you got a flight that day, you're going to wake up, you roll into the squadron, and if you have an early brief, so as a junior pilot, you're going to come in, you're going to set up a board, so just think like a big whiteboard where you've taken all these notes, and this is what you're going to brief from. So we don't use PowerPoint, we don't use any of that. We stand up, we brief with a whiteboard, because we will draw arrows and use models to basically convey what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. So you will step through that entire flight with either your wingman, or if you're going out as a 4-plane, with your division, it's called. And so you're going to, think about giving like an interactive lecture or a game plan to your players. You're going to basically start questioning, hey, what do you do if this happens? Where are you going to go if this goes here? And you're going to talk through that entire flight. That takes about 45 minutes to get through that. And we go everything from how we're going to line up on the runway to how we're going to land and in what order and how we'll do all that stuff. So a lot of the basics are in there as well, but then we go into the really advanced tactics piece. You finish that brief, you've got probably 15 minutes to maybe grab some chow, throw down some water, and then you're going to all meet downstairs at the maintenance desk. You meet down at maintenance. All of your jets are laid out there in these binders. And so you're kind of like looking at the aircraft that you're going to go flying. You're going to see what problems it's had on previous flights, if it had anything, recently done for maintenance on that aircraft, to make sure that okay, this could be an issue in flight, and I know what to do. And so at that point, we all go get dressed, walk in, put on a lot of gear. It's about 15, 20 pounds of gear. A G suit that it's like a tight pair of balloon pants that squeeze your legs, kind of gives you some more protection against G's. We've got a harness and flotation devices, a little survival kit, and everything in there as well. And then we got our joint helmet, which is it's basically a helmet that has a projected reticle inside of it, so that we can steer missiles, we can find targets on the ground or pinpoint things just with our eyes.
Oh wow!
And that It's pretty heavy. It's about 8 pounds of gear on your head. Walk out to the jet. Plane captain will be there. Salute you. You say, hey, how's it going? He tells you about the plane, tells you what he's done to get it ready. And then, you do a quick walk around with the plane captain to make sure that everything is attached and where it's supposed to be. If you got bombs on it, you're going to check all your bombs. You're going to check all your fuses. You're going to make sure all that stuff is good to go, so there's no surprises while you're out there. You get in, you start up. Your plane captain is there with you. You've got maintainers all around you, and these sailors are running up and checking oil once the engine's on, all that kind of stuff. Make sure this jet is ready to rock. And then you guys taxi out, take off, go do the flight. Usually you have to fly 10, 15 minutes to get to an area, go out to the area, and then we'll do what's called a G-warm. So we'll pull the jet for 4 Gs one way, and we'll come back the other way for 6 Gs to get your body ready for those forces, just so you can kind of prepare physically. And then you fight. So at that point, you may have launched out of your base. At the same time, there could have been an element of adversaries, so bad guy airplanes that are going to go up with you, and they'll be on the other side of this battlefield, if you will, over the U.S. as you're getting ready to fight. And then you go down and start fighting. And you're doing all your maneuvers, you're employing weapons. Everything is recorded, so like all your displays are recorded. The communication is recorded. A lot of times there's an overhead recording too that will show every airplane in the sky and where it is. So you kind of see this stadium view, if you will, of what those planes are doing. The fight takes probably 30 minutes. It's not incredibly long. 20 minutes, pretty standard for a fight to go down. And then we all fly back. We do that whole thing in reverse. Talk to the plane captain. Tell him what you saw on the airplane. Go to maintenance. Tell him what you broke, if you did, and then get changed out of your gear. Go look at your tapes. Go research everything. Make sure you're going down each piece of this and pulling out every bit of information that you can to take to the debrief. Got about an hour from when you land to when you got to go debrief. Take that time, drink some water, grab a snack, and then settle in, because you probably have about 3 to 4 hours in a debrief.
Wow.
So it's a long process. You start by watching your tapes, pull everything out. You go in, you'll discuss with the bandits what happened, who you shot, who they shot, and that's just to get information. And then from that point, we break and we'll split into 2 groups of 2 pilots and start reviewing each other's tapes. So I'll watch his tapes. He'll watch my tapes. We'll point out our mistakes. We'll point out what the right way to do it was. And then we kind of go up from there. We get back together in our division, and we just bring out learning points. Hey, what did we learn? What could we do better? Especially if something, obviously what we did wrong, we're going to improve on, but then, hey, how could we have handled this better? And we'll take notes and write those down. Once that's complete, break, and now you've got a ground job to go do. So you flew around, you did all your fun stuff, and nobody cares. Go down, talk to your troops, see what's going on. Everybody's got a division, somebody they're working with. People have lives, and that's the big thing. You're checking on, what's going on with this group of people, and it'd be amazing, but you may have just done this amazing flight, but you got to come back and you've got to engage with the people that made it happen, because otherwise it really doesn't mean anything.
Man. Wow.
Man. I'm telling you. Go ahead, Rick.
So I'm doing some math here. At your top speed from coast to coast. Yeah, since you guys said you're not coming from different areas, I don't know if it's West Coast, East Coast, but just general coast to coast. What would it take to go from Cali to New York or something like that?
So it depends, right? Because I can go really fast for a short amount of time, or I can go at a very economical speed for a long time. The jet does not have gas to make it from LA to New York by any means. I will
Gotcha.
run out of
Okay,
gas fast.
Okay.
But you can. It depends. So Fallon, this will kind of cage your brain. So if you're familiar with California, Fallon is about an hour east of Reno, and Lemoore is an hour south of Fresno. The total distance between both places is, I think it's about 230 miles from runway to runway, straight over the Sierras. And I'm not allowed to fly supersonic over the U.S. because you'll blow out windows and make sonic booms and people get all upset.
Yeah.
But I can make it. I have made it from Fallon to Lemoore, take off to landing in 17 minutes.
Wow.
200 and something miles.
And that's with like slowing down to land and do everything. So it's
wow.
You can move pretty fast. I mean, it's not uncommon to, if you're flying up across country, I mean, you can easily go 10 miles a minute.
Wow.
So what's the furthest you ever flew?
You mean distance-wise?
Yeah, distance-wise. Refueling in the air, just keep flying.
Sure. So I mean, I've flown from California to Key West a couple of times with a tanker. The longest I've ever flown, I flew a mission in Afghanistan that was 9.5 hours with 4 tanker hits. So
now this is what
that was a long time.
This is what I want to ask. This is why I'm asking that. I drove across country, and I decided to take a bag of fruits with me. And while I was driving, I was eating grapes. I was eating all these different plums. I was eating everything. And the fiber said, buddy, you are not going to make the next exit. You need to exit the vehicle right now on this highway and go check the tires. Right? So for you, you're going, the cockpit ain't got no bathroom.
That's right.
9 hours. You'd have to get something to eat. So I know your digestion system. What's going on up there? Have pilots crapped on themselves? What? Don't tell us if you did it, because we don't want you to change your name.
I'll tell you. I would tell you if I did it, because I would look for a new call sign. No. Yes, pilots have crapped themselves. That is not completely uncommon. So if you're going to fly a long mission like that, one, you need to control what you're putting in your body. So you probably don't want to load up on a bunch of fruit and, greasy stuff or anything that might upset your stomach. So you keep it pretty basic, pretty bland. You have to eat, right? If you're going to fly for 6-7 hours, like you need to take food up there with you, whether it's a sandwich or something. And so, I mean, you've got water, you've got food, you're eating, you can pee all you want. That's not hard to do in the airplane. And, but I will, like, if
don't
I start
mess up
feeling,
the controls.
Yeah. If I start feeling like I have a problem in my guts, then I'm probably just going to, I would take Imodium. I would fly with Imodium. And I would just, I'd be like, I gotta stop this up until I get back. Cause I don't want to crap in the airplane, but I'm going to take precautions. And then, you take a giant trash bag with you. I don't know. You come up with something as like an emergency kit if you have to have it. I mean, there are stories that guys have completely undressed in these airplanes somehow, which is amazing because it's tight, it's tiny, and had to take care of business. But I don't want to air anybody's dirty laundry, so to speak.
Oh man, love it, man. Listen, Tim, man, we have really enjoyed our time with you. I want to respect your time too, man. This has been a great experience, especially for me. It's been a treat for me. I really appreciate you coming on, just sharing your story. I'm quite sure there's so many more that we can talk through, and so many other questions that we can just come up with. And you probably hear these all the time from people as they meet you. But one thing I'll ask and final as we wrap up the show here is if you can go back to that young man that was getting ready to walk up to that Navy recruiter, and you knowing what you know now, and you had 60 seconds to stop him and say, hey, let me talk to you for a minute. What would you share with that young Tim?
It's an interesting question. It's one of those ones that, for me personally, I think a lot of the proving myself or proving that I'm going to make it is really what fired a lot of these things happening. So I think if I had known, in the very beginning, like, yeah, I'm going to fly jets, I'm going to do these things, I don't know if I would have pushed as hard, throughout that process. It was that fear of not achieving it that really, burned within me. I mean, I'm blessed to have, got this far and be ready to go. But I don't know. It'd be one of those things like maybe I would just let him go, and if nothing else, if it wasn't like, it wasn't going to be me in the future telling myself like, oh, hey, you're going to make it. It would almost be like if somebody else said, you can't do that. That would be it. That like, hey, I don't think you're cut out for this. Those kind of things. That's, to me, like, if you tell me I can't do it, I'm going to try every which way I can in order to do it. And it's a little more of a drive. I mean, at low points, in your life, just keep pushing, just keep pushing and see what's going on, because you're going to have failures. You're going to have things in your life that are going to get in your way. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's your family stuff or your personal stuff or education, finance, whatever it is, something is going to trip you up along the way. And you just have to kind of forget about it and keep pushing as if it didn't happen.
Yeah. I love it.
Hey, Tim, man, I want to thank you so much. I know once this was a long time coming, but in terms of, I was like, man, Tim, I've got to get you on the show just because of your outlook on life. Right now, Tim, think about it. Tim is working. You will not fly for how long? For probably 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years here.
3 years here. So it's kind of like, I know how pilot you guys want to get in that bird. So I want to thank you for taking your time out of your schedule down there, OSD, and just coming on our show and blessing us. It's like Ricky said, every time I talk to you, it's a treat for me because I just love hearing your stories and I love hearing your voice because it's so soothing and so nice and reminds me that I'm up in the sky.
Well, gentlemen, this was an absolute blast. You really put on a great show, and I think it was fantastic. I was like, I don't really know how this is going to go, but I guess I'll just get on, and everything was super comfortable, and I had fun, so it was great.
That's it, man. Well, Tim, hey, we're going to let you go, and all of our travelers will let you go as well. Thank you so much for tuning in with us for another episode of the Success Journey Show. We'll see you guys next week at the same time, the same place on this show, the Success Journey Show. Everyone have a good one. Peace.
One love.
You've been listening to the Success Journey Show, where your dreams, drive, determination, and diligence are the foundation to success. For more information, check out thesuccessjourneyshow.com. The Journey Squad is here helping you to your destination.